Okay. I want to get into behavior contracts, but as always, I want to make sure if there are any concerns, criticisms, clarifications, critiques, comments about your review there. Is there anything there? Yes.
Thank you so much for bringing in the family.
Oh,
Yes.
our Joe and Lorraine and I heard that Shannon's so amazing. Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, our pleasure. And thanks, Sherry, for that one. It was her idea to bring in and let you guys just absolutely grill them. So,
We took it easy on them because we were so in awe. They were so open with that.
yeah.
Oh, really? So,
No, they really did a good job.
She took authenticity to a different level.
oh my
That's what I
God.
noticed with her.
Isn't it nice to hear another parent talk about, I was angry, I hated him, I'm
Yeah.
guilty, I failed, just every single aspect of it, and the success and victory that they get to share all together as a family. So great stuff.
Just listen to Shannon, I thought we had to climb 14ers, so freaking Mount Everest plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else from the walls? Anything from the walls? All right, I want to get into behavior contracts. There's a ton of information about creating behavior contracts with your child on the internet. However, I have not found the do's and don'ts. What I had seen a lot of is behavior contracts saying, okay, kid, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, or this is going to happen. And that's not a contract. That's a promise of consequence. That's a probationary agreement. A contract that we get to deal with as adults stipulates the requirements that all parties must participate under and the rewards and consequences of those stipulations being followed or being ignored. For example, a rental agreement. It doesn't just say what you have to do as a tenant. It says what your landlord is required to do. They have to give you this many days notice. They have to give you this much time before they enter your building, your domain. They have to provide you this, and this. And it talks about the rewards. Now, in an agreement like a rental contract, the rewards are pretty obvious. You get a place to live. As a parent of a teen at risk or a child who's struggling, we are going to extend the rewards conversation and our expectation, the expectations that we're going to have of ourselves into this contractual language, okay? The other thing is that fill as many holes as you can, because these kids will find them if you don't. It's their design. That's what they will do. You'll say this about media, and they'll say you didn't mention my iPad, or something like that. So you make sure you get as inclusive in the language as possible. I can tell you as a Freemason, when we are doing our agreements about secrecy and stuff like that, after all the years of the lawyers and the politicians and the judges who've been a part of our fraternity, there is no stone unturned. You can find no holes in the language. When you have people writing these agreements, people like Francis Bacon, who they think was Shakespeare, who edited the King James Version of the Bible, nothing is left to, well, you know what they didn't cover? I could actually get through, it's covered. And that's the way you want to approach your contract with the kid. Cover as much as you can. Expect a few different versions of it, and expect them to find the holes. So, your behavior contract rules are as follows. This is a win-win scenario. Everybody who's involved in this contract is going to get something from it. Everybody will benefit from this agreement. And it needs to read that way. Their focus is going to be on the stuff they can't do. For example, when I would teach life skills about renting an apartment, and I handed them copies of a average rental agreement, that my daughter's signature is still on it. They find the clause and they go, what can I smoke pot in my apartment? Marijuana is legal. And the apartment goes, don't care. You're not going to do it here. And the kids are like, they can't do that, and they can, in the same way that an employer can require, and then you begin to explain the contractual process. So whether it's legal or not, you get to create a contractual process, because part of this process will act as a teaching tool. We are not just doing this in hopes that they're going to follow it and we are guaranteed good behavior. We are doing this because we are teaching them how contracts work in the real world. So use some language in it. Use contractual language if you can. I'm going to make a PDF available to you about a sample contract that I wrote. And I talked about things like curfew and drugs. And when it comes to things like drugs, you need to stipulate, not only include, but stipulate and highlight your non-negotiables. Your non-negotiables of your contract should be written in a different font, a different color. So it's very clear, look, all these ones in black and white, we can negotiate it. There will be no drugs in this household, illegal or legal, except for drugs prescribed by a doctor and administered by parents, period. This is a non-negotiable. Consequences of violating this clause are as follows. Consequence 1. Consequence 2, and then we can put a reminder at the end. This clause is non-negotiable. Other ones that you don't write are non-negotiable. You don't have to say that they're negotiable. Just don't write that they're not, or that they are non-negotiable. Let the kid figure that one out. When we talk about negotiables, remember that that too is a teaching tool. One thing that I've heard the word thrown out a few times is the word manipulation. Mm-hmm. We're all very experienced with manipulation. And the difference between manipulation and negotiation is something that your kids need to learn. All right? Manipulation is the profane side of negotiation. Negotiation is someone saying, your groceries come to $137.96, and you go, how about 120? That's a negotiation. Now, if I say, look, all right, I got 120 cash because what's going on in my life right now is, that could be manipulation. But if you study negotiation tactics, bringing in the personal gain, going in for some of that blood underneath, using some tears and stuff, it's part of the negotiation. If you can get a car dealer off $1,000 with a few tears, do it. Yeah. Is it manipulative? Sure. But it's still pretty good negotiation, okay? We want our kids to learn negotiation. So when they start to negotiate with you in the parent therapy sessions about the contract, engage. Engage in the negotiation like an adult. Because you're going to feel it come up. You're going to say, curfew is set at 5 o'clock. Well, I have all my friends have curfew at 1 o'clock. And you're like, hey, that's not negotiation. That's manipulation. So we say, do you want to negotiate this one with me? Well, yeah. Okay, what's your counteroffer? And that's how we get them negotiating. So when we are negotiating, lowball and highball your kids. Teach them how it's done. Come to them with, hey, curfew is going to be 7:30 on school nights and 9:30 on weekends. That's not what you're going to do. But I've got two kinds. So let's say 4A is know what your bargaining chips and your blue chips are. Who can tell me what a blue chip is?
Money in your hand.
It's a non-negotiable. It's money in your hand that you will not give up. It's money you're keeping. So you've got bargaining chips and you got blue chips. A blue chip is no drugs. All my friends don't care. No drugs, not in my house. Now remember what Shannon and Joe and Lorraine were saying. The moment they walk out that door, not a dang thing you can do. So you bring it on home. That's your next one, number 5. You are writing this contract about what takes place in your home, not about what your child should and should not do. Remember, the language is going to move away from what your child should and should not do and talk about what you are willing and not willing to have in your home. Bring it on home. The moment you say you are required to get A's and B's, you should get A's and B's, is the moment you are, say it out loud,
Power struggle with a child.
now you're going to power struggle with the child because they're going to go, their brains instantly going to go to the 100 reasons why they are not going to get A's and B's. And you've got to watch for number 6. Watch for setting things up for failure. This one's going to be on you. Because I can tell you from personal experience, your kids are going to want to end this conversation. They'll be really excited to get these negotiations started. They really will. Like they want to sit down with the contract. They may have written their own version. It's going to feel great. Half hour in, they don't want to be in this conversation because they've won some and they've lost some. And now they're going to start yesing you. They're going to say yes to everything. The moment they're agreeing to everything without conversation, the moment they're not pushing back, it's a yes game and the failure setup has been.
Difference in contracts between your teen and your younger kids. 2 different ones?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when kids say, how come they get to? How come I don't have to? We say, that's my contract with them. This contract with you is based on our relationship. This contract with them is based on theirs. If you would like to renegotiate your contract, I am open to that in 30 days. Okay? So,
What about when the kids are the same age? Our kids are a year apart
same thing.
and they're radically different.
Yeah, that radical difference requires different contracts.
Yeah. They don't see that though. They each see that the other's favor.
That's okay. And this is where, as parents, we get to say, I know.
Yeah.
This isn't fair. I'm sure it feels that way.
Tell them they have different credits.
I have something for your paper.
Okay, yes, please.
We have 4 kids, and at our house, fair is getting what you need, not the same thing.
We're writing that down.
Yeah.
I like that. I dropped my pen, I was so excited.
Fair is getting what you
Yep.
need.
Not what everybody else.
I love that. Fair is getting what you need. This idea that every kid in the house gets the same privilege, no. If you're older, you stay up later. You get a different kind of phone. You get to play these types of video games. Younger kids don't. Like these are okay, you want to know one of the reasons why video games are so dang addictive is because they have landmarks the entire way. Anybody here play those video games? I love first-person shooters. My son is very good at them. But you never fight the boss right out of the gate. You have to gain levels. You've got to go up. You get certain weapons. There is a strategic layout to your experience. That's what you're creating here is a strategic layout to the coming home. And so thinking that, right, the idea that they come home and we just give them anything and see how they do, that won't work. You know that instinctively. If we do not provide landmarks, the contract will fail. I'm also going to put, it's another video game, so it's landmark and save points. Landmarks and save points. In video games, you have save points. So that if you suddenly die on level 6, you don't have to go back to level 1. Your contract requires that same level of offense controls. So if your kid has made it, here's an example. Curfew, you guys negotiate the time. Curfew is going to be at 9:30 on weekends. The kid goes, I would like to counter propose, Father, that, because they're going to talk to you like this after Fire Mountain. Father, what I propose,
Yeah.
what I propose is a 1:30 a.m. curfew time. That's pretty late. I'm not ready for that level. I'm not willing to endorse 1:30 a.m. Here is my counter, my loving child. For 3 months, I will agree to a 10:30 p.m. And if for 3 months, it is decided by the adults that you have facilitated your end of the bargain, we will extend it by a half hour. 2 months, we will extend it by another half hour. 1 month, we will extend it by another half hour. If there is a violation in that time, it will go back a half hour. Those are save points. So when they screw up one time, because guess what they will, we're not going to go all the way back to 10:30. That's a power struggle setup. They're going to say, fuck it, I'm not going home. Because if I'm going to get punished and I have to go back to 9 o'clock, I'm not going. But to say, I'll lose a half hour, it's not the end of the world, because it really isn't. We know this. Then they're going to make a choice. We come back and we say, bummer. Okay, well, we're back to 10 instead of 10:30. And we're going to set up a 2-month trial period. Yes.
Back to number 6 where it says failure setups.
Yes.
So if they, while you're doing a contract, just start saying yes to everything,
Yes.
is that the time to kind of say, okay, is it okay if we take a break from this right now and finish this another time?
100%. And that's the adult brain doing that, right? Because the kid's like, okay, yes. All right, fine. Yes. And you're like, hey, okay, time out. I don't feel like we're engaged and connected in this. And it seems like to me that you've hit the limit with wanting to talk about this today. Let's pick it up next week and move on to something else. I'm good with that. Okay? Because their brains, I literally just experienced this 3 months ago with my own kid. Like there got to a point where we saw it, and my wife and I brought in a therapist for our experience. I want you to know. Because the shoemaker's children go barefoot, it's very true. So when my wife and I were going through this with our kiddo, we were like, we need outside eyes. We brought him in, and sure enough, the head nodding, okay, yep, and you could just hear he was done. And the therapist said, time out. Feels like you're wanting this conversation to be over, that you don't have the patience to keep going. It's an intense conversation. We get it. Mom and Dad, how are you guys doing with this? Are you guys willing to stop? Yeah? Okay, we're going to stop. Let's pick this up again. And like my wife and I were just like, this is a really good contract. Everybody better, and he was burnt. Emotionally burnt just on the conversation. He wasn't not willing. He absolutely is willing to do it. He was burnt. Okay, so some adult had to step in. I wasn't in the space. I was really excited to get my needs met. It wasn't working for everybody. Okay, so when it comes up, see it, acknowledge it, because otherwise they're not going to follow through on it. They were just yesing you to get you to shut up. Not that that's ever happened to you. All right. Save points and landmarks. Allow your kid to realize that it isn't forever. I'm not saying 9:30 till you move out. That's when you have to be home on weekends, because that's not realistic. That's a failure setup. I'm saying 9:30 for 2 months. How long should we do and what time should we do? I don't know what's going to help you sleep that night. Okay? Require check-ins for extended bennies. What this means is, hey kid, curfew's gonna be at 9:30. However, you could extend that to 10:15 if that night you've checked in with me with a text every 45 minutes, every half hour. I tell you, when my kids figured that one out, when my son and my daughter figured out the checking in by a text, holy crap, our lives changed. We slept better. Everything changed, because at the movies, leaving the movies, on the way to Steve's, at Steve's. I didn't have to check in. Where are you? Okay, I need you to text me. I know you're doing things. We had an agreement. We could come home right now. Would you? Okay. All right. I expect it. And then you're staring at your phone for another half hour. Not that that ever happens every day. But the moment I started getting those texts from my kids, oh my God, I knew where they were. I knew where they were going. I knew what their plans were. On my way home.
Or at least what they said.
Yes, there is that piece. And you will have to negotiate that trust piece like Joe. Look, he cloned his daughter's phone. He saw everything, every single thing.
But at least they're thinking about you thinking about them.
Yes, yeah.
So they know you're on their mind.
That's right. That's right.
My blue box isn't big enough.
Use as many blue boxes as you need.
We're out.
You're out of, okay, there's paper in your, there's paper, wow, we're getting there. Paper in the gray folder. The rewards clause. Don't just write, this is the biggest mistake I see parents make with behavior contracts. They tell the kid what the kid's gonna do differently and then tell them what the punishment is. And that's it, that's the entire clause. The burnout rate on that is instantaneous. You could make it to the second one and realize there is no reward for good behavior. Now, the problem that we Gen Xers have is that we love to reward children. You showed up to the soccer game, here's a ribbon. Like, come on, you guys. Realistic rewards that prepare, not protect them from the real world. Prepare them for the real world. So create time structure long enough to just get uncomfortable. Discomfort is okay. In the same sense that if we go, here's your curfew till you're 18, it'll never work. If we say, oh, what curfew would you like? That will never work. The healthy middle is, here's your curfew that we've agreed on. It's realistic. It's not a setup for failure. It will last this long, and with perfect attendance, you may absolutely renegotiate. With poor attendance, we may extend the time limit. But for now, we're going to hold this clause for 2 months. Then we will talk about it again, and we will base it. We will keep track. We will keep a track.
So 2 questions that are kind of related.
Yes.
You mentioned 30 days in a renegotiation. Is that a tested period of time that you found works well to renegotiate? I mean, 2 weeks is probably too often. 2 months isn't often enough. I mean,
I think it depends on the specific item we're talking about. And B, I think it depends on the individual child's own struggles. Because I would never, any child can do anything for 1 month. That's why 28-day programs don't work. Anybody cannot smoke pot for a month. I didn't smoke pot for a year. I drank daily, but the point is, my problem was weed. It's like we can always find that other thing. So I'm looking for that individual piece that allows me to trust that they might have that one under control-ish. Okay, so let that change for each thing. I would never say a direct 30 on everything, because my negotiation chips are not just going to be about the time that my kid's going to come home. My bargaining chips are also about how long they have to do this before we renegotiate. So let them negotiate the renegotiation date, because part of negotiations, a good negotiator knows that you got to give to get, right? You have to give to get. You cannot bogart the entire negotiation process. So you need to be clear going into your contract writing, which ones are your blue chips, your non-negotiables, and how many different things you could negotiate. Because a kid getting 5 days sooner before they get that phone, earn that phone back. Look, if you set up 3 months, right? And you say, in 3 months, we can renegotiate you getting your smartphone back. And 2.5 months later, the two of you are going, you know what? They're doing so well. Let's extend or let's shrink it. Then you front load. Hey, I know we're 30 days away. I know we're 15 days away. I know we're a month away from our renegotiation date on the phone, but we're really, really feeling amazing with how you've been doing. We would like to set up a renegotiation night after dinner on Thursday. Does that work for you, or would you rather do Friday? Remember, I'm sharing power and I'm giving to get, because how excited would they be?
I'll say, do you tell them what's coming?
Well, you just say we'd like to renegotiate. And no, the practice of not telling them what's coming is part of our love and logic strategy, okay? We're gonna do, because it would make us feel better to tell them, because then they would be excited and love us more, right? But if we say we'd like to renegotiate, well, what are we gonna renegotiate? Listen, you've been doing really well. We feel we owe you a renegotiation.
So you give them the hint that things.
Sure, yeah. Because they know they've been doing well, at least in front of you. So, but then a couple days later comes up, we sit down and we say, we would like to change the date to give you back your smartphone. Well, when are you guys thinking? Does now sound good? How much do you love me? Like, those are okay moments. It's okay to do that. And it might absolutely blow up in your face. They might take it up to their room and log on to Pornhub. And you're like, oh, come on. But that level of sabotage is what we expect from these kids. Understand that 2 weeks before your kid graduates, they will screw it up. And we never take the kid and start them over, because they've got a save point. They're in phase 4. They're in that wizard phase. Doesn't mean we boot them back to Jester. They've earned that, and we know they're going to screw it up. If you go into this contract expecting them, how many holes did you punch in an apartment wall and hide with a picture? How many carpets did you actually not get clean, just vacuumed really, really well? Come on, we know we're going to screw up the contract. The point is not to hold them to a level behavior. The point is to prepare them for the real world.
The second part of the question was, you're setting save points, and that's really cool to show progression, but not going completely back. At what point do you have to regress?
Yeah, those are on the non-negotiables, right? Your non-negotiables are the serious life and limb ones. If you cut, this contract will be null and void, and we will explore therapeutic intervention options of one of these 3 levels: PHP, IOP, or residential. Like, we are literally calling off the contract. It's an eviction notice. Okay, it's the meth lab in the closet of the rental property. You're done.
But I mean, so say they keep coming home late. I mean, at what point? I mean, do you have a baseline?
Yeah, and
say you're coming home at 3 p.m.
Right, and the baseline and the how many chances you give before you call off the curfew piece altogether is up to what's going to help you sleep well at night. Because if you say you get 3 chances, the third one will be the one that this clause becomes null and void, and we will go back to and you don't have to have that part in the contract. You can say we will go back to a very tight structure. Well, what does that mean? It concerns me that you want to know what that means right now. Yes, to be determined.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the issues that Jeremiah has had in the past, and I know it's my issue too. I mean, as far as it bugs the shit out of me. Okay, it's the fact of he smokes. He got into smoking.
Cigarettes or vaping? Like
a
it
little
matters. Okay.
Okay. Well, it started out as he grabbed cigarette butts from places.
Yep.
Okay, and because his dad and I could not handle the fact that just was so disgusting, we made the wrong choice probably and got him a vape pen.
Okay.
Okay, but because we found out he was doing other things, we were done.
Yep.
Okay, so there was a point where he was hiding things around the house, under the house, various things.
Yep.
And we have told him there's no smoking in the, I mean, before he came up here, everything was going on. So if we are saying we don't want you to smoke at all, which that is what we would like to do, at least until you are legal to do it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Your contract can't say that. You can feel that, but
Right,
you saying that is irrelevant,
right.
right? Okay.
So my question, and because we know that what he does outside of the house is one thing. We can say we do not want it at home.
Yes,
There are no cigarettes here. But if he comes home smelling like smoke,
yes, that can be in the contract because that affects your household. I am not willing to provide the benefits of this contract to a child who comes home smelling like smoke or is high. Like because they're affecting your environment. This is your home. No one smells like smoke in this home. Will he have a pair of clothes outside that he changes into? Maybe. How far will they go? Let me tell you how far. Let me tell you how far these kids can go. One of our first families that I coached, the dad calls me and he says, so I'm searching my kid's room because I know my kid's smoking pot. And I am up and down in this kid's room. I flip it. Find nothing. I cannot find everything. Every coat in the closet, every pair of shoes, nothing. It's like, but I know something is going on. I come home one day and there's a new vent on the roof of my house. And I go to my kid and I say, how did this vent get there? And the kid says, Happy Father's Day. I vented the attic. I did some research. Kid shows the dad the research and everything.
What?
Dad is like, wow, like this kid's on it. Dad still has that feeling. So one day he comes home before the kid and he goes inside the kid's room and he flips it again. He is turning that kid's room upside down. Every shoe, every jacket, every shoebox, every keepsake. He finds nothing. So he walks out of the kid's room and says, I know it's in there. He walks back in and the kid walks out of the closet.
What?
Yeah.
So the vent is,
And he goes, where were you? And the kid goes, I was cleaning my closet. And the guy goes, I was just searching your closet. Show me. And the kid showed him the false door he had built in the back of the closet up to the attic where he had a grow operation.
oh. We thought the crawl space was sneaky. Holy crap.
That's how far 16-year-old kid. 16.
Well,
Okay.
that's why I was asking, because my parents looked at her telling me, well, you're just making a mountain out of a molehill. Just leave him alone.
Nope. Nope. You get to decide what happens in your house. Outside your house, you have no control over your kids. I know we would like to, but honest to God, with these contracts, every clause, every time you write something, you have to be able to answer the question, say it out loud.
what can I control? No, really.
No, really. No, really. What can you control?
Myself.
Yes. Even what's going on in your house can sometimes fall under no, really. But when it's time that something going on in that room, search it. It's your house. I do not agree with anybody who says their private space. Yeah. Life and limb has shown up with your children too many
My
times.
son's door's been gone for like 3 months.
Now, there are children, I have worked with parents that kid has nothing in the room but a mattress. And that kid will still find a way to get high. Like it's just, it's how insane addiction is. But they said, the clothes you want, you come to me to get. What can you control in your house? You can go as far as you need to. But outside the house, the favors your kid is pulling so that they can get high at school, whatever. So it's the no, really. Can you really control it? And how much of your child's work are you going to do? That's the question that has to come up as well. Yeah, how much of your child's work? If every rule you have requires you to work harder, to spend more time and energy on your kid, what good is the rule? That's the part that we forget. We go into I've worked with parents who've locked up every sharp in the house and the lockbox, and the kids still, they find a staple. I told you the worst cutting I ever saw was a girl who chewed the button off her hospital bracelet. And while she was in the padded room at the acute unit, she gave herself the worst cuts she had ever had and ended up in ICU with the hospital bracelet. They'll find it, they'll do it. And at that point, there is a place where the parents go, okay, I can't control this. Yes,
So I'm thinking, because Steven's almost 18
yes,
in a few months, and I'm thinking that at 18, he really can do what he wants to, but not in our house.
not in your
So
house.
that's kind of the big difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the front load conversation about your kiddo, who is so, I mean, we've all talked about your kiddo, he's so freaking brilliant. Well, I'm 18, you can't tell me what to do. You're right. And so we need to have a conversation about what 18 is gonna look like. Because my parents gave me luggage for my 18th.
Boom. I got freaking
So-
luggage. Thanks a lot, Mom and Dad.
Call us when you get there and you're unloaded.
Call us when you're unloaded. So there's a conversation, and it starts like this. We're so proud and relieved you've made it to 18. Like there were times where we were worried.
That's so true.
Yes, yeah, and there were times we didn't know if it was gonna happen. And so we need to have a conversation next week about what living at home at 18 years old is gonna look like. Because there's a part of you that's an adult, and there's a part of you that's living at home like a child. And those two don't always mix very harmoniously. So we need to have a conversation about what's that gonna look like. We could do Tuesday or Wednesday. Which would you prefer?
Now,
Yeah, well, we're not willing to do it now. And look, I know it's a heavy conversation, but try not to worry about
Yeah.
it. Those words are magic words. Rose, those words are magic words. Try not to worry about it. Because guess what you just commanded their brain to do?
Worry.
Worry
Yeah.
about it.
And that's how you give the problem back. Love and logic rule number 1 that Fire Mountain loves to follow.
Give it back.
Give the problem back.
so I'm thinking, Aaron, like Steven came home on pass, one of those first passes, and you said, how am I gonna find kids to hang out with? Everybody uses.
Yeah.
I'm going through my mind of like all the resources I'm thinking of. and it's
Yep.
like, hold on a second, that's not my job.
Yeah, and you can always ask, who was I talking to earlier where we were talking about, you can always ask, do you want my advice? I know Aaron told me some stuff and I'm happy to share it with you, or I trust you to figure it out. Do you want some input on this? Hey, can I give you some feedback on this? Right? And that's just, and listen, the cue for what you just said there is everybody I know. Because the truth is, in Colorado, who has one of the highest percentages of adolescent pot smokers and drug users, we're still talking about 22% of kids. So that's just everybody he knows. That's not everybody.
He says it's everybody.
Of course, they all do because that's the way they justify it. But what a great conversation about living at home can look like is what Dad and I are willing to do is to provide room, board, food, and some of the essential bills, and we'll go through which bills we're willing to provide in a minute. Don't worry about that yet. Under the following conditions: full-time school or full-time job. There will be no drugs or alcohol in this house. Don't care if they're legal, my love. That's not the point for us. There will be no drugs or alcohol in this house. And we go through that. We give them the list. Here are the bills. There's a great letter, and I've put it in past packets for the Parents Weekend. But there's this wonderful letter, and of course the mom who wrote this letter obviously was Love and Logic trained, but her son's name was Aaron. So it started, "Dear Aaron, since you have expressed to me so clearly and eloquently that you are a big man now and that you don't need to be told what to do, I figured now is a great time to treat you like a big man. Here are the following bills. Your rent will be $300 a month. Electricity is $15. Internet is $15. Your portion of the groceries I have calculated out at $75 a week. If, these will all be due on the first of each month, and if not, just like any big man, your eviction notice will come and you will have 30 days to vacate. Or you could go back to being my 13-year-old child. Choice is yours. Love, Mom. Okay, and it was very good because she laid it out for him. You can do the exact same thing except in this contractual form. Because one thing we need to impress upon the kids as we are preparing instead of protecting is that when you make an agreement, you keep it. That's a value.
Yeah.
I'm part of a fraternity that when we shake each other's hands in our super secret magical ways, we keep that promise. We do our little,
Yeah.
we keep that promise. Because if we break that promise, we have violated our obligations to ourselves, to our deities, but most importantly, to the other men in our fraternity who are looking at us to be fellow temple builders. It's all symbolic, of course, except remember, we all like to say a handshake used to mean something. That's what our contract is about. At the end of the day, when my son was struggling with the contract that we were setting up, the final answer was, you agreed to it. And that's what we're holding accountable. I just saw it. I love Facebook. I'm a big time Facebooker. I love Facebook. And I hate Facebook. I hate Facebook so much. Hi, Facebook Live. We're on Facebook Live, by the way. The first part was as well. What I absolutely love about it is right now there's a meme going around about this politician in Virginia who cheated to get into office. And he's crying as his son is on stage testifying against him. And I'm watching people saying, oh, his son's ratting him out. Saying accountability, holding your father accountable to his promises is not ratting someone out. This is what we should be doing as men, is holding each other accountable. You said you would do it, and that's what the contract is a practice for. Remember, they're children, this is practice. And it's inconsequential in such a way that if they screw up, we're still going to love them. Why? Because we love them for who they are, not what they're doing. We're not going to love them less because they violate our contract. We're going to love them. And what a great learning environment. Unconditional love. It's frustrating, but that's your problem, not theirs. We feel cheated and lied to, but that's your problem, not theirs. Their problem will come when the landlord smells weed coming from the apartment and they hear that. And they get evicted. And they call you and go, got evicted. And you go, oh no, what happened? You already know what happened. You saw this coming. You took pictures of an eviction notice and held it up to them 5 that morning. But you know what, oh no, what happened? Go busted smoking pot. Oh.
What I tell my kids is, when Henry turns 18, Mom's gonna buy a studio apartment, so if you want to live with me, you have to sleep in my room, and I'll be really traumatized.
So we get the phone call. I'm getting evicted. First place there to live. I'm getting evicted. I got busted smoking pot. Here's my number one love and logic rule. Give the problem back. So my response is this.
What are you gonna do?
So where do you live?
What are you gonna do?
What's your plan?
What's your plan?
What are you gonna do is the same thing. Yeah.
What's your plan?
What's your plan? And I'm so excited to hear it. You know why? Because I don't have any idea what you're going to do next. Can I come home? It's something we could discuss on a contractual basis. When's your eviction date? They give me 30 days. Okay. Well, that's legal. So it sounds like you got the right amount of time. So I'd say in 15 days is probably a good idea, good time for us to have a conversation about you living at home and what that would look like. Don't say, but you're not going to smoke pot in my house either, because now we've started. We're right back to it. And that's what we want to say. Serves you right. You know better. Why are you making choices? I knew it. All those things. Like, that's not helping. This is where we say, oh no. Oh, so sad. And in our mind, we go up to our parenting partner and we're like, Because that natural consequence is gonna last them a lifetime. Natural consequences hurt. And you guys have become experts in protecting your kids against natural consequences. Because your kids have been dancing on the cliff edge. And we're trying to protect life and limb. But the rule is, and this is what I'm about to write, is not love and logic, but it says everything we need to say about natural consequences.
Technically, it doesn't.
Yes, but we're never going to remember doesn't. Because if it don't hurt, it don't matter. If it don't hurt, it don't matter.
No gain without pain.
That's right. The challenge is what's going to change them. Them having to figure it out is going to, that is the neuroplasticity that your brain has that Sherry was talking about all the way into your 90s. Is that you can create new neural pathways all the way into your 90s because of your neuroplasticity. You can learn new things at any time in your life. And you suddenly getting an eviction notice and realizing you have to be honest with your parents and you're suddenly facing your choices. Yes, I know the fear is going to be like, my landlord hates teenagers. My landlord had it in for me from day one. She used to look at me. He used to treat me. And you can chase them. You can chase them if you want, but it goes nowhere because the moment you provide evidence that the landlord actually didn't hate you, they're just going to come up with it. Well, the trash man used to put the dumpster in front of my door, so I'd have to climb to the. You're what? I thought we were talking about the fact that you smoke pot. Like, and it's not. So we just hijack the entire consequence experience by saying, "Oh no, Mom, I'm in the principal's office. Yeah, you gotta come get me. Oh no, I can't."
And this goes back to playing dumb.
Yeah.
This is playing dumb.
Playing dumb. Now, love and logic, again, playing dumb is more our words than love and logic words, except I have heard them use those words, play dumb. But playing dumb means.
Let them explain it.
That means, this is where I can feel the wizards in the room go, that's never going to happen.
I can see that right now, that's much.
But I give up.
Yeah, that's it.
My word
Because when they call you, some even leave the room. They're like, I'm out.
My word is
Dude,
bummer.
Yeah, bummer. Bummer's one of the popular ones. Ours was bummer dude.
No, mine-
Bummer dude. That was the one we came in. I don't, I'm.
Ouch.
Yeah. Ouch. It's no.
Damn.
Love and logic, at its core, love and logic at its core are these three things: empathy, boundaries, and natural consequences. Sometimes we'll state for the record, sometimes you and your parenting partners are going to have to manufacture some natural consequences. And you can do this by enlisting the support of your community or your child's community. For example, the school. For example, the court system. For example, people in the neighborhood. But hopefully there's something in this that you can just make space for. making space for them to fail a class. Our homework battle ended with our kids in middle school. Because my wife and I sat the kids down and said, we love you too much to argue about homework. And she come from an East Coast family that was very big on higher education. And I came from a family of a very wizard dad and a wizard bard mom who really, really wanted what was best for me. And the homework battles were devastating. They're devastating. They're exhausting. They're as much work for the parent as they are for the kid. You might as well do their homework. Okay?
A lot quicker.
Yeah, and we said, we're not going to ask about your homework anymore. You may come to us at any time to ask for help. We will say yes every time, or we will find someone who can help you better than we can. Your grades are your responsibility. We want to see your report cards just so we know you're going to school, because that's your work right now in life. Any school environment that you feel would be more conducive to your learning, you may ask for it. My kids were homeschooled, private schooled, public schooled, unschooled, and both of them ended up going to community college in their 11th grade year. And my daughter graduated high school at Colorado Mountain College. And we stopped asking about their homework in middle school. And we had the exact, hey, how was school today? Great, I got a quiz tomorrow. Oh yeah, you got to study for it tonight? Yeah, okay. Ask if you need support, and then I'd hear that video game at midnight, at 1 a.m. And I heard, how'd the quiz go yesterday? I failed it. Oh no.
Bummer.
What's your plan? We'll already talked, and this is where it changed. Well, oh no, what's your plan versus, well, I heard you playing video games till 1 a.m. What did you expect? Huh? Told you so. I'm right. I'm a right adult, child. Yeah, I win, child. Versus, what's your plan? Well, I've already talked to the teacher, and I've got a makeup date day after tomorrow. I was like, do you need me for anything? No, I got it. And what that has translated into is my daughter contacting me and saying, I'm taking my car back. Oh no, what happened? The windshield's not sealed. It's like, really? You just bought this car? Yeah, they're gonna fix it for free. And they did. Not because they promised, but because she handled it. And me backing out of that homework thing says, I trust you to figure this out. And if you can't, right here, all you have to do is say, Dad, yes, Superman. Right here, what do you need? And less, they needed us. And more, the relationship became harmonious. They knew what time dinner was.
What happens if you're getting straight F's is okay?
They can always go back to school. Right?
Of course.
It's not what we want, but it is a powerful natural consequence. Here's how that conversation can go. How you doing in grades? I'm getting straight F's. Oh, bummer. I don't care. Well, you don't have to. I mean, you certainly have the choice of whether you care or not.
We should have this conversation before parent-teacher conferences.
Yeah, so the rest of the conversation goes like this. You can always go back to school. And I know your friends will probably all go on to 11th grade when you stay at 10th grade. But you know what? Doing 10th grade a second time actually might be easier because you do all the same classes, you have all the same teachers.
And you'll get better grades.
Yeah, you'll get better grades. Maybe this is a good idea, but it's your call. I love you for who. Yeah.
Because she's power struggling. Right?
It's all in the way you say it, Aaron, because it could sound really patronizing.
Oh,
when
I hear
Tanner would just start throwing things.
When
Dad said that, it'd be like.
When I hear, and you and I had a conversation about a different aspect of love and logic, and you even said it in such a way that I know you've heard it before. Love and logic doesn't work. And I know when parents said it because when I was introduced to love and logic, it was how I was delivering the consequences. First of all, I didn't use this. This is the love part of love and logic. Because if you're like, well, you can always go back to school, I guess. Friends are going to graduate on time, but that's where it goes. It's in the delivery.
It's in the tone.
It's gonna be in the delivery, because how you say, you know what, you can always go back to school. You know, and listen, if you would rather not go to school right now, I would totally understand that, because wouldn't you? If your kid said, I don't want to go to school, would you understand why?
Yeah,
Yes.
right now,
Yes.
yes.
Right now, yes.
Definitely.
Yes, right now,
Yeah.
yes.
School sucks.
So does work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's only one way they're gonna find that out. One way they're gonna find out that working at Subway, because they'll hire a 14-year-old. There's only one way that they're gonna find out that that Taco Bell manager is half as cool as that math teacher was. Or way more cool, because he gets high too, you know. And there is that danger. There is that piece in it. It's true. I delivered drugs working for Pizza Hut. That's how I paid the bill. And I told your kids this. You know why? Because as I was going through all the budget of what it takes to live in a month, right? We did our life skills. We did the monthly budget on an average studio apartment in Denver, Colorado. That's how much it costs. Then we put in all the bills. Then we put in car payments. Then we put in credit cards, interest-only payments. And by the end of it, we say, and this is how much you make in a month from working full-time minimum wage. Because, you know, that's what you're going to make if you don't have a high school education, right? And the kids all accept that. They know that one. They've been told that, probably by you. And so they looked at it and they were like, that's down $1,000 a month. I said, that's what being in the red is like. And that's why America's really struggling with minimum wage jobs and being able to pay for basic necessities. But since that's not going to change anytime soon, what you have to do is go through your budget and you have to shave off $1,000 of all the things you want. Well, I guess I won't have a car. Oh, that's a good one. If I get a bike, I don't have to have a gym membership. Oh, that's a good idea. You know what they have to shave off. I created the damn project, right? But I'm listening to them and I know where this conversation is going, because every year, every quarter, it goes to the same place. They shave off everything they wanted and they still can't make it. And then I really pull the rug out from them. I go, oh, you guys, you know what? I forgot to take out taxes. And they go, how much is that? I go, 28%. And papers go flying, pens get thrown across the room. And then the words come out that I expect. Fuck it, I'm just gonna deal drugs. And this is my response. That's what I did. Let me tell you how that worked out for me. Because I had the DEA fly over my house with a 50 caliber machine gun pointed at the house my daughter was sleeping in. And I left a person laying on the ground. And I didn't know, for years, didn't know whether they lived or died once. So I could get a sheet of acid for free. And I tell them my stories. And I talk about 50 Cent, who was a drug dealer and got shot for it. And how 50 Cent turned everything he knew for being a hustler on the street to operating a clothing company and a successful music career. And his hustle remained the same, except what 50 Cent wrote about it was this: I sleep well at night because I'm not worried about my friends stabbing me in the back. I'm not worried about the police kicking in my door. I'm a businessman, not a drug dealer. The hustle's the hustle. And so I take the kids down that path and I pull out a coin. And I say, do you think being a drug dealer is about a 50-50 chance on a nightly basis, on a daily basis of getting caught? They're like, 50-50, those are great odds. And I said, let's see how great. Heads or tails? You're a dealer paying your rent with your drug deal. Heads or tails? Do you get caught? Heads. Nope, you don't get caught. Day two, I've only made it to 7 days max. And then I say to the kids, what happens when you get busted for drugs? And they list it. Well, you get arrested, spend some time in jail. Great. And what about your job? Well, you can lose your job. Yep, understand that. If you're busted with a lot of drug money, what happens to that money? Police take it. What happens to anything you were carrying the money in? Oh, they can confiscate the cars, the TVs, everything. And I said, so if the hustle's the hustle, why would you do it on that side? With that same level of hustle that you need to be a dealer, you could do over here and start a landscaping business and turn that profit the same way and never have to worry about the cops kicking in your door. That's the go that way. When your kids bring something up that's so provocative, I'll just deal drugs. Go that way. Follow that path with them. That's the wizard. They say dealing drugs. Show me dealing drugs in the future. Jails, institutions, and death. That's where it ends up. And this is what I tell your kids. And guess where you all are? institution. That's right. So you're 1 down, 2 to go. How many of you want to keep playing the odds? Because that's what we had a mom. She used to tell this story because her kid wanted to be emancipated so desperately. And the parents were like, you tell her. And I was like, no, I'm not. I handed her the emancipation paperwork. And the girl read it. And she came back to me the next day. And I said, I know nothing about it. I just printed up the stuff. Tell me about being emancipated. Do you know it's a 1.5 year long process and I have to meet with the judge on a weekly basis with my parents? I said, yeah? Holy mackerel, that sucks. I'm just going to marry my best friend. He's 18. He can sign a lease. Now, in my mind, I know. And so that was her new tactic. Me and Levi are going to move in together. Me and Levi are going to get married. And mom was like, thanks a lot. Now what I do? I said, take her to look for apartments. Take her. And she came, picked her up for a pass. Daughter was like, what are we doing? Mom says, we're going to go look at apartments in Denver. You want to move out? Let's go find you a good one. Oh, she was so excited. She was so happy. Best pass her and mom ever had. Came back with 12 unfilled out apartment applications. Her coming to me, do you know the tiny ass studio apartments in Denver are like $1,270 a month? And that's not bills. I was like, I know. Bummer. She was like, I have to have it. She had an answer. And this is what the mom said to me. Their kid was so obsessed with motorcycles. So obsessed. And of course, listen, do you know what they call those helmets? Brain buckets. Do you know why? He was like, Mom, I'm a good driver, right? You get it, right? It's not you driving, it's the other drivers. Well, I'll be so good they can't hit me. And he's, right? Pictures all over the wall of the motorcycles. And finally the parents are like, fine, let's just take him to a dealership and let him talk to a motorcycle dealer. The kid walked in, same family, the kid walked in to the Harley Davidson dealership, looked at the first motorcycle in the door and went, $30,000 and walked out. And that was the end of the motorcycle fad. The fear of the thing is bigger than the thing. Take them that way. I want to move out. Let's go look at apartments. Spend the day with your kid. I want to buy a car. Let's go look at cars.
Okay, I got one for you.
Great.
Kira said yesterday she wanted to be a lesbian. Where do I go with this one?
Go look at. So what I would do is I'd take her to a place called Queer Asterisks and let her talk to Soren, who was one of our interns.
She
And Steph.
was for
Of course she was.
Yeah.
So come back to her and say, listen, I love you no matter what.
That was our response.
Well, I said, oh, that's fine. Okay. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
No, you like girls, all
She's
right?
like, what? Something else, yeah.
I was busting my daughter's chops at dinner one night. I was like, is there a boy anywhere? Is there a boy? Like, are you interested in a relationship? Dad, I think I'm gay. Is there a girl anywhere? I mean, like, what's happening here? And that was the end of our power struggle because I don't care, right? But to say, hey, we found Queer Asterisks. The person who founded this used to be at work here at Fire Mountain. It is really, really cool. Their name is Soren, and we just wanted to give you this information. Love you. And that's the left hook, right? The boxers jab, jab, jab. Oh, yeah, jab, jab.
You now.
Yeah.
We're gonna
You
share
decide.
dinner, so we'll like that.
Queer Asterisks, Soren, S-O-R-I-N. And say, talk to Aaron about Soren. Aaron says that they are so cool.
Yeah.
So Kira introduces me to her girlfriend and then introduces me to her boyfriend, just to let you know I haven't totally gone over you.
You know,
I'm on the
I've been hearing
precipice.
this, I'm like
She's just pulling
90%
her
lesbian and like 10% boys. I'm hearing that a lot. Are you guys getting that too?
No, see, Kira's just about reaction. She's just about the
pulling your
reaction. And to be quite honest with you, I don't really care. I just want her happy, you
That's
know?
it.
Whatever makes her happy is cool with me.
Yeah.
But she thinks this is gonna be the thing that she's gonna be like, what the hell? That is unacceptable, you know? And I'm like,
Oh.
It was just funny because it happened yesterday.
yeah, it did.
So that's to go that way. Did you got, okay, so I'm gonna write down go that way because it's one of the love and logic concepts, again, that we're using Fire Mountain terminology, but the words are go that way. The best classes I have ever taught with your kids start with a question or a comment that they have about something that they're interested in. And when you explore it with them, rather than saying that will never work and here's my list of logical reasons, you insane little teenager. Go that way with them. What a great day for you to, I'm just gonna live in a tiny home. You know, I was watching these videos and the bills are so cheap. I'm gonna live in a van. Hey, did you know Aaron's got a gutted van he's willing to sell? Well, you bet I do. I obsess about tiny homes and van living. And in fact, I teach a class to your kids called How to Live in Your Car. Do you know why I teach them that class? Because they all think they can. And it's a really fun class until I ask this one question.
Where do you go back?
Yeah, what do you do with the poop? and they just kind of look at me. I say, because here's just some ideas I've seen. Some people save it in Tupperware. And they're like, whoa, time out. It's like you can get a porta potty from Walmart for about 30 to 60 bucks, depending, but then you have to empty those. You get caught emptying those into a regular dumpster. It's a massive penalty. So you have to find the right place to do it. And we talk about parking laws. We talk about how some Walmarts are a good place, but you have to ask the manager. And you could,
Eric did tell me he's either going to be a lawyer or live out of a van. Thank you.
You're welcome. But go that way. Actually go look at those vans, because right now those vans are at a premium cost, and that cost can talk them right out of it. And start at the high end. Like go that way with them. They say they're interested in something, step into that space with them and say, what's your plan there? Because it lets them know that you trust them. The moment you start denying their dreams is the moment they stop sharing their dreams with you. It's one of the things that we say in our 12 steps. Stop sharing your dreams with people who don't give a shit about them. And if you're one of those people, because you've got a reason why the dreams that they're having are not realistic, of course they're not realistic. They're dreams. Otherwise we call it reality. The dreams are the idea without the plan. Help them develop a plan. They'll never make it. And if they do, it might actually come true. Because that's how you make a dream into a reality, is the plan. It's the budget. I've got a gutted camper out there, and I love to brag about that. You know how long it's been gutted? Do you know how many plans I have written down? It's Tuesday that Shane and I are going out to the pickup parts so I can see if I can pop the top. Because when I finally started to act out on my plan, I realized that a new popped top for that van is $4,000 with a $700 shipping fee. I'm not paying that. Right? And that's what your kid has to go through. You telling him that is the talk about. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. It's that walkabout. When they're doing the walkabout in that apartment or into that motorcycle shop or through that van, the reality hits. And quite frankly, living in a van is pretty kick butt. And you should see the documentary on how many college students are living in their cars in the parking lot right now.
Go to any climbing gym.
Yeah, it will.
How many vans are in the parking lot overnight for a month?
That street by the YMCA and the Bull Rock show, that is literally a camping ground.
It's a camping ground for climbers.
And the fact that the cops are good with that right now, I love it. Because they need it, but cities are now outlawing it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you role play one with me?
Yes.
Whatever?
Yeah.
Mom, I want to go live in a trap house and become a stripper or prostitute.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm going to go live in a trap house and become a stripper or prostitute.
Whew, that's a pretty big one for me, honey. I don't even know how I feel about that. So, I mean, what do you know about those places? Like, why does that appeal to you?
Well, my what did she call? What's the slang for dealer?
Pusher.
No, it's a word I've never heard. But my dealer lives in a trap house, so I'm gonna go live there.
Well, I mean, it sounds exciting at times. I bet. So, like, what's the appeal to you? Just the access to drugs?
I can have the control over my life.
In a place where dealers are living, I would think that the cops would have a lot of control. I mean, maybe I'm wrong because I've never lived in one, sweetheart, but maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like the cops would have a lot of control over that place. I mean, it'd be hard to sleep with the idea of not just cops knocking on the door, but maybe even like violent men, just busting in. I mean, I certainly can't control where you live.
So this is what she did next. Oh. Yeah. She's right.
That's where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this, I'm also saying, I can't control where you live, and I'd be sad if you did. But the choice is yours.
Because I can't really go that way. Like,
I just did.
But you don't take her to like.
What's
Here,
a child's
let's
like,
go
here,
to-
let's go.
Go talk to Candy Store to see how life is integrated.
I mean, I guess if you're gonna do one of the two, stripping the brown.
No, look, going that way doesn't always necessarily mean taking them to a stripper joint and say, go talk to them and ask them about their father issues. It can say, what is it that you think about that's appealing? Like, I'm curious, because look, that conversation has a payoff for them, or they would not be doing it. What's her payoff? Is it your reaction?
I think so.
Yeah.
Then take the reaction away so there's no payoff. And that's the piece when you say, wow, sounds exciting.
I can give you an example. So Jeremiah has said, because he loves to dance, he loves his music guy, okay? So he's like, what would you think if I became one of the Chippendales guys? I got the moves, and he says, would you come watch me? I said, sure, I'll come give you a couple bucks. Stops it right in the tracks.
So, better hit
You know what, I do remember.
Oh, he's got it, that's why.
Okay.
She wasn't going for the reaction. She was trying to shock me into her way. Mom, if you don't let me do what I want and have control over my life, I'm gonna go do this. That's what the manipulation was, I think.
Sure, and then, look, what love and logic would dictate in that moment, you would say, wow, that's intense. I have some thoughts about it. Do you want to hear them? No. Okay. Let me know how it works out for you.
I'll be here, taking care of things.
Yeah, let me know how it works out for you is the back end of the what's your plan. There's no plan there. And the plan's temporary. 3 nights in that place with the screaming and the yelling and the no sleeping and the. So she's looking for the payoff. I want control of my life. And so you knowing that means that if she was to approach that conversation again, you know the conversation is really about control. This is a great time to move off of love and logic for a minute and do MVE. MVE is a listening process. Love and logic, which we will come back to, is a consequence process. All right? So now we're going to start the hard conversations that we kind of go, and we're going to use the term the zinger, because that sounds like a zinger, where they say something and you are utterly speechless. I'm just going to be a whore. That's all you think of me anyway. I had one kid say to his mom, the mom said, the kid said, I'm going to kill all your precious little children. Right? And the mom was like, and that's the zinger, the one that leaves you speechless. So what I need you all to do right now is somewhere on your notepad or anywhere, write down, and you'll need to be able to carry this around with you, write down the thing your child said to you that left you speechless. The most provocative, vile, violent thing that the kid said to you, or even if it's not so vile and provocative other than, I'm going to kill myself. Okay? Whichever the one that you went, I don't know what to say.
But context can be something there too, right?
Yep.
Because there's one time I think we believed it.
Yeah. So when you're doing this exercise, provide the context. Okay? Not necessarily the full story. Just say it in such the way that you're trying to stump your partner. Okay? So take 3 minutes to write down the zinger. You're all going to need to come up with something different. If you're here with someone and you guys are writing down the same zinger, just know you're not going to be working with them, so that's fine. So like you two could have the same one. You two could have the same one. Okay?
The thing is, I can't think of anything because they're not like that. They're just when they get
Mariel's
mad.
not like that, bro.
Personal harm threat?
Not
Something she
she's not.
responded with when she harmed?
this one here is amazing. She hasn't done anything except for she was banging the page a little bit, but
Again, it doesn't have to be violent. It's just the things she said that made you guys go,
it crushed me. She just don't hate me and how she hates her life.
Do that
She hates
one.
her house and she hates everything. And all,
then just do that one.
because I was from a family of 6. I didn't hate anything. I was glad.
I'm sitting here today thinking, like, I really don't. There's a lot to learn.
So much of this stuff, please remember that the staff, someone like Rose, and Rose is, well, she's amazing. How many times a day she practices this stuff over and over and over, because it'll be with your kid and then this kid does something and she's doing it over here and then she's back. Like we get so much practice at it that if I come off sounding, oh, just say blah, 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 and you're like, ugh, just know that it takes practice and we screw it up too. One of my favorite screw up stories with the kids, not in this facility, but at an original facility. Each boy, we were boys only, they had to do the dishes. One boy was responsible for all the dishes that night. And they just rotated, 8 boys, so it's a nice long week, and one boy, just the dishes thing, that was the struggle, that was the battle. And on his 3rd time of saying he was done and promising, swearing to the Lord Jesus and everything that he had taken care of it, and me checking the unfinished dishes that hadn't even been rinsed and just stuck in the rack, and threw the entire rack of dishes across the kitchen. I just lost it. Like, you're gonna mess this up. You're gonna screw it up. And this kid, he went home and he really struggled. His relationship with his old man was terrible, and he kept burning out, and he relapsed so bad his mom booted him from the house. He lived in the car in the alley behind his mom's house in Canada through the winter. He wrote me a couple days ago, and how many years he's been sober now, and how he's a sponsor now for other people, and how he gets it, how the time with me was more about being a man than it was about being in recovery. He gets that now. And it just, you never know. We get calls from kids who are like, I wish them luck. And they call and they're like, yeah, I'm really struggling with financing my senior year of college. And you're like, you're alive? Hello? Hello? Like, are you serious? Would you come officiate my wedding, Aaron? What? Who? Like, it's amazing. So, as badly as we can screw up, they can still make it despite us. Okay, so this zinger. Go to another box, and you might need a separate box for each one, M, V, and E. But here's what MVE stands for. And remember, this is a listening process. It is not a consequence. Oh, I spelled empathize wrong? Dang it. Mirror, validate, empathize. The kid is going to say something like, I'm just going to go live in my drug dealer's house and be a stripper. Oh, for my dead man, your dead, and the drug dealer and everybody's dead body, right? That's how we feel. But we're going to use MVE.
Okay, where's the address? Let's move your stuff.
Yeah. Now, this is one of the things that Sherry was saying yesterday, where this is scripted. Listen to me. Warriors, you do not know this well enough to change the script. Bards, you are not talented enough to change the script. Wizards, you are not smart enough to change the script. I don't have any jesters in the room, so we don't have to worry about that. Jesters don't show up for this event. It's too uncomfortable. And we'll talk about that why tomorrow morning. Now, you have a strong jester side, no doubt. So did this yokel over here. But it's too uncomfortable to be a jester in this room. Mirror. What we say verbatim is, what I hear you saying is, and you repeat what they just said, verbatim. Verbatim. What's the word?
Verbatim.
You have to say what they said, otherwise you didn't hear them. If you paraphrase it, if you change one word, they will not feel heard. This is where your wizard brain went, Because when you said, actually, that's not about shocking me. It was about control. So what you say next is, oh, wizards, you're gonna hate this one. Wizards, take a deep breath right now. If you think you're a wizard archetype, take a deep breath. You already know if you do. Because you've already said, I know he thinks I'm a wizard, but I'm not. And here's the 5 reasons why. You're a wizard. What makes sense to me about that is, and you tell them, we'll get to that one. Don't try to figure that one out yet. We'll get to it in just a second. Because the bard over here figured it out. The bards are really good communicators and understand emotion. So what makes sense to me about that is, third one for empathize. I imagine you must feel blank. So now let's take our young girl's example. I'm just going to go live with my drug dealer and be a stripper. What I hear you say is you are just going to go live with your drug dealer and be a stripper. What makes sense to me about that is it sounds like a lot of fun and you would get your drugs for free. And I imagine you must feel, and you went to powerless and control. That was your thing. I imagine you must feel like that would be a way to get control of your life. Now, that's not technically a feeling, but we're okay on this one to expand the feeling out to experience and thinking. Okay? Somebody else give me one of your zingers. Yes. Everybody do this with me. I'm going to slit your fucking throat. Okay? Do it with me. Take a deep breath. Say it.
What I hear you saying is you want to slit my fucking throat.
Okay, take a breath because I know that was a mouthful.
What makes sense to me about that is
You're really
Good.
upset and angry.
Say that one again. I heard. Yes.
That's next.
We would keep that one next.
The next one that I imagine you must want me to relate to that.
Because we're talking about here. I imagine you must feel. I imagine you must feel in a lot of pain right now. Very angry about me. So what makes sense to me about that is not that she's angry, because that's dysfunctional level anger. So that we can't trigger the possibility. But what makes sense to me about that is,
You want me to go away?
yeah,
You want me to go?
you want me out of your life right now. And I imagine you must feel pissed. What I hear you saying is, you're going to slit my fucking throat. What makes sense to me about that is, I'm denying you a lot of things that you want, and you're just hating me right now. And I imagine you must feel angry. Give me another one.
I have no reason to live.
Start again. Here we go.
what I hear you saying to me is you have no reason to live. What makes sense about that to me is
Life is really sucking right now.
Good.
life sucks for everybody.
Yeah.
This is about them.
It's about them. But welcome to the club, little boy. But a good answer. Life really does suck right now.
Right now.
Yeah, right now. Because they're saying it right now. And they want a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Just like we are paid to do as adults. Come up with permanent solutions to temporary problems. But they don't feel temporary. Reusable spaceships, that was a thing of future and science fiction. And then it became a temporary issue. And now we're on to the next thing. Like, that's where they're going. That's the brain's working when they're saying something like that. So it's the lizard working. But life sucks right now. I want to die. Remember I told you about that 9-year-old? what he had been through with his father. We had a young man here who was here for screen addiction. 13 to 18 hours a day. No school. Brilliant boy. Brilliant boy. No school. You can imagine his diet was horrendous. He was playing EverQuest. Anybody know what EverQuest is? They also call it Evercrack. It's not a popular game anymore, but it was one of those online Dungeons and Dragons, sword, you're with a team. Mom was a therapist and was completely thrown by this. And so we had a conversation. My first family session with them was a conversation where she goes, I don't understand. He's so brilliant. He's so handsome. His health is suffering and he knows it. The food he eats is horrendous. And he's rotting away in his room. Why would he choose this? And I knew the boy's history. And here's the boy's history. He was 5 years old and his dad got down in front of him and said, I'm doing this because of you, and put a gun in his mouth. That was his history. And then obviously as things got harder and more frustrating and he got more isolated, he got bullied. And then the more out of shape he got and the more isolated he got, the bullying got worse. So why would he go to school? But when he got online in that video game, his character was this gigantic, muscular man with 2 weapons and magical powers and a team. And every day they were given a mission to go save the world, and they accomplished it. So now tell me, which reality would you choose?
Yeah.
Right? The one where you had to reconcile what your father did, or, okay? So that's how it makes sense. And someone has to make sense of, I just want to die. And it's not going to be them. Someone has to make sense of, I want to slit your fucking throat. And it's not going to be the person who said it. And when we get into the reaction of what they just said, and we start to play that chase me game, how could you say that to me? Do you know what we've been through to get to this point? Do you know how much we've said, like the resentment that we start to feel, the frustration, the guilt, the shame, the absolute fear. And now, who's going to make sense of it? You? You're as lost as they are now.
How long do you have to do this?
That's a great question. And the answer is, keep them talking. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is, and this is why it's a listening process. And this is hard for the warriors and the wizards. Because warriors and wizards want that intense conversation done. Wizards want to solve the problem, and warriors want to conquer the dragon. It's in our DNA. So this is hard for us because it goes on as long as you need it to. What I hear you saying is you want to live in a drug dealer's house and be a stripper. What makes sense to me about that is strippers do seem to have a glamorous lifestyle and make a lot of money, and you get your drugs for free. I imagine you must feel pretty desperate for drugs and the power that money brings. No, that's not it at all. I just want out of this bullshit place. Everybody start over with me again. What I hear you say is you just want out of this bullshit place. What makes sense to me about that is, someone tell me, someone raise your hand. Yeah, there's too many rules.
Too many rules.
You'd have your freedom. What else? We're on it. Keep going. Make sense of it.
Wouldn't have to eat gluten-free food.
I wouldn't have to eat gluten-free food. Right? You could do what you want. You could take control of your life. So, knowing these things, I imagine you must feel, what's the word they're feeling? Powerless, trapped. That's it. I do feel trapped. I hate my life. Go, start.
What I hear you saying is you feel trapped.
Stop using the Fire Mountain shit on me.
I hear you saying.
Yes. Now this is where you say, this is where, look, if you have gotten them from I want to slit your throat to stop using Fire Mountain shit on me, A, they're still talking. You are still in connection, and people, we get afraid of conflict because we think that conflict is violence, and conflict is still connection, and we grow through conflict. We have all grown through conflict. It's violence that disconnects us. What happens on Facebook with the Republicrats is violent communication. And so it is indicative of our disconnect of human to human experience. That's what we're afraid of. But having a conflict with someone because you disagree on politics is really good. And it's what civics class in high school was supposed to teach us. That we discuss this until we come up, and even if we don't agree, we can say, hey man, I respect your opinion. Or I don't respect your opinion, but I respect that you, that's what it's supposed to be. But we get so afraid that the moment conflict comes up, we got to shut it down. But if when they get to and they will, don't use that Fire Mountain shit on me. This is when we can go, I suck at listening to you. And I really, really want to hear this. Not just what you have to say, but try to figure out what's underneath it. Because all I do is react. And that has never worked. So I'm just trying to listen. So I'm using a technique because without it, I suck at it. And that's where I really screwed up us. And there's my damaging admission. And look at how I've controlled the energy of the environment. Look how I've called a pause. I'm staying in contact. That's what I'm looking for. That's the wizard sneaking inside this provocative statement that threatens to throw me sideways and say, I really, really want to get to know the storyteller. Because you know as well as I do, I'm going to go live with a drug dealer in a stripper house. It's just a story. It's designed to evoke a reaction because they have a need that is not being met. That's it. And if we get into this process where we start to tell a story back to them, they're going to hear how ridiculous it sounds. And then when we say what makes it, do you know what's really going on here?
Yeah. Internalization of what they're saying.
I hear you, you make sense to me, and your feelings matter to me. That is what we are communicating through this listening process. I hear you, you make sense, and what are teenagers' biggest fear with their parents? They don't understand me. They don't listen to me. And do I matter?
So this is really affecting her. And one of our daughter's specific things is the self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
The fact that she is not only internalized, but has brought herself
So let's
into
do
a
it. Let's
lack
just do
of
it.
value.
Let's do it.
Sorry.
Okay. I know I just survived and now I'm stable. I still want to die.
Okay.
I don't want to live.
What I hear you saying is you still want to die and you don't want to live. What makes sense to me about that is life doesn't seem to have gotten any easier for you. And the pain is still there. And I imagine you must be hurting.
Yes.
And then you shut the up.
That's it.
Yes.
And she'll close off, she'll be in, and it's like, yep, there's no.
Then you just reach. There is help. Because you just validated her experience. Because everywhere she turns, it's you can't feel that way. You're not supposed to feel that way. You should be healthier. This is just a connection point. It's just a listening exercise.
But do I accept? I'm accepting.
No. Validating and accepting. Validating their experience, you making sense of their experience does not mean you agree with it. That is a part that we mistake. If I validate it, I must be saying it's okay. No. You're just saying it's a valid experience. It's happening, and it's happened, and it might happen again. It's valid. It's real. And I'm still here with you. How you doing with that? I know you're looking for that golden thread, that golden bullet. Who was saying about the golden bullet the other day that we're constantly in searching for that one thing? I think we were talking about it with the Lyme disease. If that was the thing, if someone said, guess what? All your kids have Lyme disease, and they proved it, we'd be like, we solved it. Same as cancer, same as AIDS, same as, it's the one thing. This isn't that. This is a way to connect and stay connected through a listening process. And you can keep going. Or it stops, and if she closes up in that moment, cry with her. But just be there. Be in that space because you validated the space. It made sense to you. You listened. And if you're trying to imagine how they feel, and that means they're not alone anymore. And in the isolation, that's where our trauma is taking place. Trauma takes place in isolation. Healing takes place in community. And now your community.
So I don't want to make this all about Rowan, but this is just, I haven't even been able to really participate in this because my daughter won't say anything to me. She won't include me in family therapy. And she puts everything at my doorstep saying that I'm the main reason for her unhappiness, but I can't get her to talk to me.
So we start the letter like this. Your silence is telling me more about a relationship than I ever wanted to know. What makes sense to me about this is damaging admission. I imagine you must feel so angry at me.
I want to help her too.
That type of letter states that in no uncertain terms. It states that even though right now you're not ready to talk to me, I'm listening. I'm listening to your silence. I was saying this to one of the moms earlier. We had, when we have kids who come in therapy and all they do is just sit and stare at the therapist or head down and don't do anything. Our therapists were coming out of the sessions going, how do I write notes on that? And our clinical director at the time was absolutely intolerant of them saying, I don't know what to write because the child didn't speak. It would say you had an hour to figure out what they were going through, and their silence probably said more to you. You were just waiting for words. So start with what you have. This exercise is not trying to superimpose some experience onto your child so that you can finally connect. This exercise is taking what you have and working with it. And so start with the silence. You texting her and her not texting back. You working out with the therapist. How can I pass a message to my daughter so that she gets it on a nightly basis? Just so that she knows I'm here, so that you don't disappear and you don't feel like you disappear. Find that way. Because you texting and them not texting back is still you saying, I'm right here. I'm right here. And that just might be the test.
Well, and even maybe just the fact that you're here and she knows you're here might be a step too.
It is. And then you've already talked about what happened the first night. So it is a step. A door has been cracked. And what you and I talk about is if we see that cracked door go, it's going to slam shut, right? We know that. So the desperation that you feel is not her responsibility. Because if you put that desperation on her, she will even more. You did. Okay, fix it. Admit that you have. Tell her how you correct and continue. That's the way of the wizard. Correct and continue. Oh, I cast that spell wrong. And let the townspeople know it's going to keep raining because you cast it wrong. I'm going to go back and recast this spell. Work with what you have. All right. So now we're going to practice MVE with each other. So your job, and this is rules are tight on this one. You're going to take the zinger. And you're going to walk around to the other parents in the room, and you're going to find someone who's also walking around with a dazed look on their face. Find them, okay? And walk up. Yes, please.
That's all I needed.
Okay. Hey, it's good. Give her nervous system a... Okay, so you're going to walk around with your zinger. And you're going to walk up to another parent and you're going to say the thing to them that your kid said to you, and they're going to MVE you. So you'll say to them,
Keep going.
you're gonna say,
Okay, you can come if you want to. We're good.
hey, Andrew,
Yeah,
Dad's in the other room too.
okay.
Does he need to be there?
I don't know. It's nothing here.
Fair enough. Thank you. Okay, now we know. Good. You are going to be your kid, and the other participant is going to be the adult who is validating, mirroring, validating, and empathizing. Follow the script, follow the rules, keep your questions for the end. You zing them. If he and I are partners, I'm going to go up and I'm going to zing them. And I'm going to say the thing that my kid said to me that left me speechless. He gives me MVE. We finish, big take a breath, then we switch. He says his zinger to me, I MVE him. If we need to debrief, short, like another minute or two max. And then split, go find other parents to do it with. Because people will be wandering around the room looking for a partner. We're going to take 15 minutes to do this, so it's a long exercise, but you're all going to come back experts at listening. And then we'll debrief it, okay? Go ahead, begin, MVE. All right, I'll log back on in just a little bit.
Different ones, we can do it.